well, this is episode 30 of Talk That Talk. I'm your host, Fallon Stokes, and I have another special guest today, Chamique Holdsclaw, one of the great WNBA players, especially, in the game, changing the game in the 90s and, in the 2000s, as me being a high school kid coming up playing basketball and just watching you play, such an inspiration. Welcome to the show, Chamique.
Thanks, sis. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. This was a gem for me, especially taking this small hiatus from the podcast. But it was great that we could schedule this and finally get it going, because I know you've been busy and I just appreciate you jumping on the podcast. So my listeners and viewers can just, hear what you've been doing and what you're doing now, and just get some background and some history about your career and what you have done and your accomplishments. So let me just talk a little bit about it. You're from Queens, New York. I don't want to get the boroughs wrong, because people get mad if you get that wrong.
Exactly.
You attended the prestigious Christ the King High School, where you were a great basketball player there. Won 4 high school or New York State championships while you were there, which is incredible. Went on to the University of Tennessee, where you won 3 national championships and have a ton of accolades, your accomplishments while you were a collegiate athlete. You moved on, the number 1 pick in the WNBA draft in '99, and were selected by the Washington Mystics, where you had a run there, played for the LA Sparks, the Atlanta Dream, and the San Antonio Silver Stars during your WNBA career. And then you were a 6-time WNBA All-Star selection. 3-time WNBA second team, 2-time leading rebounder in the WNBA, and 1-time scoring champion in the WNBA. You were an Olympic gold medalist, winning the gold in 2000 in Sydney Games. And you were inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in 2018, which is in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's where the Hall of Fame is located. Am I wrong or right on that?
Yes, you're right. You're right.
All right, perfect. So that's just to give a little bit of the story. I'm going to let you start talking about it. Talk about growing up in Queens, New York, and when did you determine that you had a love for basketball?
Oh my God. So growing up in Queens, if people don't know New York City, Queens is probably, when you talk about diversity, it's probably the most diverse, I would say, borough. You have a lot of foreigners, a lot of African Americans, and as they say, you hear it in music lyrics, Queens gets the money, So I grew up around a lot of entrepreneurship, a lot of people leading great community efforts. I always got to see what success was, and it was always at my fingertips. So we had greats like Kenny Anderson, Kenny Smith, always coming back to the community, doing events for the youth. So at a young age, I was able to take advantage of that. And so I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, I want to play sports. I want to play basketball. Right. I grew up, in Queens during that time. We played stickball, kickball, whatever it was. I was the girl that was like always out there with the boys. You couldn't tell me like I wasn't a part of the team, and I was the only girl out there. But it was a desire that I had just to be active. I had no idea that it would lead to me being such a successful, I would say, student athlete. Having the opportunity to go to these prestigious schools, as you said, Christ the King. I just thought like, okay, I'm going to use this as a vehicle, because I saw Coach Crimmins. Bobby Crimmins was like the first coach, former Georgia Tech coach.
Right.
That I saw come to my neighborhood to recruit players, male players. And I remember like so excited. My youth coach, Mr. Green, rest in peace. He was like the guy that would like help a lot of kids in the community go on to college and connecting them with coaches. And I was like, man, I want to come. I'm going to come play for you, Coach Crimmins. I'm going to come play. He's like, young lady, you're gonna have this opportunity, but there's women's teams, and so you're gonna. I thought I was gonna go play with the boys because that's who I grew up around, competing with.
Right.
Same thing. Sonny Vaccaro, he was running the camp. I think it's ABCD. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm going up to Sonny like, yo, can I come to camp? And he's like, well, it's a boys camp, And I'm like, but I play with Ron, that's Meta World Peace, Lamar. I can hoop, I can play. And he's like, but I can't. It's a boys camp. But they always told me, yo, you're gonna be successful. You know, you're gonna have this time where you get to go play amongst your peers, and you're gonna be great, young lady. But you know, as a young girl, that felt like denial to me. You know, even on the courts with the guys, it's like, oh my God, she's a girl. I don't want to play. But what was interesting, that like fired me up. It fired me up. And when I would get out there on the court, the guys, and then I'm like crushing, leading the team and scoring and rebounding. They didn't know what to do, but it was interesting always. You know, back then it's like you line up, everybody picks their picks. You know,
right.
I remember the coaches, and they're like my friends. You know, we all grew up together, but they're a little older. And I remember them like the boys having decided they wanted a girl to play with them. And on my first team, they didn't want to pick me. So I remember going upstairs because my grandmother made me go try out for the team, and I was so upset and angry. I was like, why'd you do that? And I'm like in my room throwing stuff around. And I just remember the next year I practiced. Next year I go, and there was no denying me. And I led the team in scoring. Like, I was better than the boys.
Isn't it always like that? The boys over here hating, and then the women or the girls dominating. You know, that's just awesome. That's a good story. How old were you when that happened?
Oh, I was like, I had just moved with my grandmother, so like either 11 or 12 years old.
Okay.
You know? But, you know, I just knew when I started to see, you know, like back then, a lot of the women's games were not on television, you know.
Right.
It wasn't the whole girl power movement of the, you know, late 90s, early 2000s. So, you know, I was teased, I was bullied. Oh, you're such a tomboy. Why? You know, they used to call me something called a flat lever. So I walked to school when I first moved with my grandma with all the girls, and then afterwards I'm hanging with the boys. You know, in my mind I'm just like, oh, these are my homegirls. Now I'm gonna go play basketball. They don't play, but you know, I wasn't into like, oh, back then. You know, I was still a kid where some of the girls, they were liking the boys. You know, so that's why they were getting mad at me, because like the boys are like my best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, so that was like my routine. I was just one of the boys. I loved to play. I would compete. I was the girl when I went to live with my grandmother. So my parents, my mom, she was struggling with, you know, alcoholism or whatever. So I had to go stay with my grandmother. So I was the kid that was new to the hood. My grandmother lived in the projects in Astoria. So, you know, I had to get adjusted to that. Just, you know, so much to pick up as far as your senses. You know, I left a middle class area. Now it's like so many kids, so many people. But that place, to this day, I learned what community was about. You know, it was like, it was from the outside looking in, you're looking at, oh my God, you know, underserved community, you know, drugs and all this stuff that was going on. What I got to experience was, you know, I had the elders always watching, you know, telling my grandmother back then gave them the authority. If Chamique was not acting right, you know, my neighbor is going to be like, hey, you need to stop. And that was just as strong as my grandmother telling me to stop. You know, I'm like, okay, let me get in line. But it was great. It was great. The community, the support and the love. I actually went back a couple of weeks ago just to like show my wife and my kids like where I grew up. And, you know, it's tough for some people to see, but I love that place. That's where I learned, you know, hard work. I learned what support was about. And no matter where you go, if you take care of your people and take care of your community, they always gonna have your back, you know?
Right. That's true. That's a true statement there. So you end up at Christ the King, and we can talk about the ballers that have come out of there. But, you know, Lamar Odom, like you said, Sue Bird, who just made the decision to retire this season, Tina Charles, yourself. And then I even give a shout out to Jose Alvarado, who went to Tech.
Georgia Tech, right?
And is currently playing for the Pelicans. So y'all produced some great talent coming out of that school. When did you make the decision, or was that your grandmother's decision to send you to Christ the King, or was that the school in the neighborhood that people went to?
No, it's not the school in the neighborhood. Actually, so in New York, you take a test and you apply for like the private schools that you want to go to. And I think I picked St. John's, St. Agnes, I think was like an all girls school. So anyway, I got accepted to all three, and St. John's is like the closest to my house, you know?
Okay.
It probably took me like 15 minutes to get to school. And I remember my youth coach, Mr. Green, rest in peace. He was like, hey, you're going to play today at the park? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to play with the guys or whatever. And so I'm hooping, and I see this Italian gentleman there, and he's like, this is the coach of Christ the King. He wanted to come see you play. I kept telling them, you're different. So I'm out there just boom, boom, you know, shaking up the guys and playing. And he was like, man, I would love for you to come to Christ the King High School. And I'm like, well, I'm probably going to go to St. John's. My grandmother liked the idea of me, you know, going to the school that was closer, you know,
Sure.
easier to get to. And so I remember after a while, they met a couple weeks later, trying to talk to my grandmother, and she's old school. And she's like, okay, Christ the King is going to take you an hour to get there every morning. You know, I'm not feeling that. Mm-hmm. She goes, if somebody is offering to give you a scholarship or whatever to go, they have an expectation, you know, like they want something from you, you know. Right. And she goes, no, like I'd rather you. She was paying for me to go to St. John's, you know.
Oh wow.
So
okay.
Yes, out of her pocket. So she's like, and you could just continue to go there, you know. And I'm just like, oh my God, but it's the best, you know. They win the state championship every year. All these colleges are gonna look. And I had just like found out about like Pat Summitt, Vivian Stringer. And like I'm on basketball, like overdose, you know, right. Like women's basketball. I'm like, grandma, like I could go to college, I could like do this. And so she said no. And I remember crying, and I had to like beg her, and I was like, please, I'll get up. You won't have to like wake me up in the morning. And she held me to that. Like she let me go. Mm-hmm. But it was for me to get there. If my grades wasn't on point, she's like, I'm pulling you out, you know? And wow. We made it work. It worked.
That's
it was
one
of the best decisions. We would travel. I had to travel every morning, hour there, hour back. But I did it.
That's incredible. And you don't hear that too often. You got a school offering you a scholarship, but your grandmother's like, nah, I'll continue to pay for you to go to this school that's closer. But you were just, you wanted to go, you know what I'm saying? And you did what you needed to do to make sure it worked. Yeah,
it wasn't like, you know, I grew up with my grandmother, especially in Lutheran. So I went to like a Lutheran school, and in their mind, so you have your regular state education public schools, right? Mm-hmm. So they always say like the Catholic schools, you know, are always like upper level, like the work that they're doing is like a step higher. So parochial schools, like Lutheran schools, they always say it's like 2 steps higher.
Wow. Okay.
So I was like always able to like do the work, but I would say my grandmother always knew like sports. She don't play with the academics.
Like my mom, most of them don't. Mm-hmm.
It was like, man, like if I brought home a B, like people don't understand. She'll be like, Chamique, what? You got to get it. You know, all my kids then graduated high school. All my kids they went to college. Well, my mom got her like associates, but my grandmother's like all her other kids, you know, went on to college, did what they had to do. She did not play. Like it was like, you're a great athlete. You're going to be good at this, but I don't really care. My like people understand, like my grandmother supported me, my family supported me, but they were about the academics, number one. Mm-hmm. So it was very interesting because, you know, people always looked at me like, oh my God, you're so talented. Basketball. I was like, y'all have no idea. My family, the conversation in the car is just weird afterwards. Like, I'm like breaking records, and my grandma, how you feel, my baby? Oh, okay. You took that history test. What did you make? But it was good. I guess it was a good balance because I didn't feel like it was like all basketball, you know,
right.
Like, all the time. It was just like, all right, real life, like, let's get to it.
Right. And you need that. You know, I say it all the time with my mom and dad. My dad was all about sports, but my mom as a teacher was always about the academics. So if the grades weren't there, I wasn't playing. So, you know, you had to make sure you stayed on top of that. And I appreciate it to this day. So I know after winning 4 state championships at Christ the King, every school in the country was recruiting you. Who were your top 5 schools that you were interested in?
Oh, top 5. Let me see. All right. It was, okay. So of course, UConn, because my high school coach is Mr. Kenzer is Italian. Gino's his boy. Okay. And you mentioned earlier, Sue and Tina. So we have, for my high school, that's 3 number 1 picks. I think insane. In the WNBA. That's insane. So yeah, shout out to them. But I had UConn, Penn State, Tennessee, Ohio State I had, and I want to say who else came? Purdue.
Okay.
See, my recruiting was like handled a little different. So yeah, some coaches called or whatever, but as I was getting closer to making a decision, like once, my high school coach said, pick 5 schools, maybe 7 schools, and I'm putting a list out there because we're not going to have people calling you. So I didn't get all the phone calls and stuff from coaches as, some people got. It was like, all right, these are my schools. This is who's allowed to call. But of course, the coach didn't call on the line trying to talk. And I'm like, oh, you're not on my list. Sorry.
No, that's crazy. So I just know that's a difference. I thought it would have been like a crazy experience for you with the number of schools trying to recruit you, but that was good. You had to support your coach. Hey, just pick these schools. These are the ones we're gonna focus on.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I just remember like the cool part about sports. I'm sure you understand, like when you get that first letter. My first letter was, I had a bunch of mail, I guess, coming through, and a lot of people don't know, I didn't play my freshman year of high school. I was on a team, but I think I played, when I came in, my coach was like, okay, you're going to varsity. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I didn't want to because all my friends coming in, my girl Danielle, we all play AAU together. Right. And then now our team at Christ the King, like you mentioned earlier, was good. So I had all seniors, went D1.
Oh, wow.
And top team. So I was at the bottom of the bench. Only reason I got to play was because the star player, Nakia Hill, who actually went to University of Georgia out of high school, got hurt. So they threw me in there. And I think I made the paper because I had it was during the playoffs, maybe like 10 points and 8 rebounds. They're like, who's this skinny kid out here balling? And I was like so nervous, and I went out there and I did it and got a write up. And now it was like, all right, who's this player? And then some of the players on the team was like, you're getting letters. They're not going to give them to you until you're like a sophomore. And they were like, it's like a whole bunch or whatever. And I was like, all right, cool. So I remember getting a stack of mail coming into my sophomore year. They gave me the letters. And I looked, and then my first letter that I looked at was from the University of Colorado, Coach Sil Berry. And so that's where I thought I was going. I went out, I got the Colorado hat, the black and gold. I was like, I'm going to this school. Didn't know where Colorado was.
Right. This is where I'm going though. First letter, I'm ready.
Right.
So I watched your documentary the other day, Mind Game, The Unquiet Journey of Chamique Holdsclaw, which is on Canopy. I really enjoyed it. It really gave me some great information just on, your background, your life history. But it talked about, it was a point in there where, when you made the decision to go to the University of Tennessee, or when you were being recruited by Pat Summitt, she spoke with your grandmother. And as soon as she said it was 100% graduation rate, grandma was like, yeah, that's where we going. So, talk about, I guess, making that decision and meeting with Pat Summitt for the first time.
Oh my goodness. So I remember Coach Summitt come into my house, right? And I remember she walked in my kitchen area, and I look up and I was like, oh my God, you look so fake. And my grandmother wanted to smack me in the mouth. But she thought it was being rude, but it was surreal. I'm like, right. Pat Summitt is in my house. like this is crazy. And I remember, this is crazy. So, again, I'm telling y'all, there's an apartment building, the projects in New York City, right? Mm-hmm. So now all these coaches, Gino, all these coaches are coming. So you got the dudes on the block that I hoop with. When they sit outside and, Gino comes, dudes whatever. When Coach Summitt came, it was like the Red Sea party. All the dudes like, hey, Miss Summitt, how are you? Yo, oh my God, I love this. I was, we clowned about that forever. I was like, man, y'all was acting like some major groupies, but that's the impact that she had. That's the respect that she earned. I'll never forget my high school coach, Mr. Canzero, was a New York detective. Okay. So he would escort the coaches because Mr. Canzero was like, all right, I'm strapped. Good dude, man. And I tell you, it was just Coach Summitt, she has that way. She had that way of making people feel like so important. She's like, hey, what's up, fellas? You know, talking to everybody. And it was the difference. Like she's just such a attentive, such a amazing woman. And when I made that decision, right, me and my grandmother talked about it. I had joked with my grandmother. I was like, I think UVA was one of the other schools that I talked to. But it wasn't like my top 5 because too many of my friends went there. But I just remember after visiting Tennessee on a plane going back, I told my grandmother, well, I think I might go to UVA, just joking with her, right? And she didn't know that I already told some of the players that I'm coming to Tennessee on my visit. And my grandma was like, over my dead body. She was mad on that plane. She rolled her eyes at me because she just knew, she knew that Coach Summit would be like an extension of herself, you know, make sure that I was okay. And they just really connected. And it was the best decision I made because people talk about like Coach Summit championships and basketball and stuff. When I tell you, I've never, well, I have, but you know, my grandmother, but such a good person. Like I ran through walls for her and do whatever because Coach Summit was like real. She's an authentic person. You know what I'm saying? Like she just was relatable, you know, this is a white woman. Like she was just so relatable and could talk to us and connect with us. And that story I told you about her just opened up. I go get on a plane one day, right? I'm in the airport. And this lady's like, oh my God, you're the player that played in Tennessee. I have to tell you this story, right? And this has happened like multiple times throughout my adult life, right? Like one time, ladies tell me, I was on a plane and like I guess Coach Summit switched her flight. And so she's rushing, like everybody's like, oh my God, this is like we're looking, it's Pat Summit. But she had like changed her flight, so she's flying now, coach, you know? She's just flying at the seat. And everybody, she said, I'll never forget that everybody just looking like that's the coach from Tennessee or whatever. And she goes, next thing you know, like the service starts going around and Coach Summit says, hey, everybody, whoever wants a drink, I'm paying. So she's like, just let them know I got it. And that's the type of person she was, is always looking out and taking care of people and never met a stranger. So I think a lot of who I am today, I got to like be educated by, she's like Holdsclaw. She's like, you know, you might not always love what you do, right? You go through phases where we're changing. Because I had that like conversation into my career. Like, I'm like, coach, like, I don't know, you know, I feel like there's another calling on my life. And she's like, okay, you it's okay not to love somebody, not to be in love with it anymore, right? But don't cheat it. Just give your best. Like you work towards your best, give it your heart, and then you might just transition to something else. And the thing was, I'm very like, I would say a little introverted. I would say I'm an introvert. Keep to myself and my close friends or whatever. But I remember her telling me, I was like, you know, my dad struggled with mental illness. My dad lives with schizophrenic disorder. And I know how it's impacted my life or my own journey. And I was like, I'm tired of like not talking about this. I said, I'm going to talk about it. And she said, well, you know what? Do it. She's like, do it. And she said, the thing about it, I'm like, coach, but I did an appearance. I'll never forget when I first decided this. I was playing in Los Angeles and I did this mental health awareness event. I think it was at Southern Cal, USC maybe. And it was like 10 people inside the event and 50 people outside waiting to get my autograph. So when I first started speaking, it would be like a couple of people, you know, maybe 10, 20, 30. And it was like almost always a bigger reception about the basketball part or people coming up to get like autographs. And I would tell Coach Summit that she's like, well, if you believe in something, never veer from your message, you know, like be consistent. And I really bought into that approach because I was speaking about my struggles, living with my, you know, a dad who's schizophrenic and stuff. And in the beginning, people were like, why do you want to talk about this? And I was like, because, you know, it's important. A lot of people are dealing with this. When I started speaking out, I would have teammates isolate me like off the bus and things like, hey, you want to go get something to eat? And they were like, you know what, you're very brave. I've struggled with X, Y, and Z. So the more I talked about it, the more people were like pulling me to the side, especially living in Atlanta during that time. You know, it's all the athletes
Right.
have a home in Atlanta. I'll be in Buckhead working out. You know, NFL dudes like, yo, Holdsclaw, man, heard your story, man. I identify, keep doing what you're doing. And so it was always these little signs like that. Like when I was just like, oh, this is too much. I gotta like navigate, and I don't want to talk about these things anymore because it's heavy. It's heavy work.
Right.
That somebody would say, oh, I appreciate you. You're changing my life. You know, you're a real one. And I was like, man, like maybe this is my calling. Maybe this is like my ministry. You know,
Right.
I can share my message and help others. And so that's what really, you know, I guess it inspired me to keep moving forward to deliver this. And look where we are now with this big shift of these younger athletes and younger people. I always call the younger people the change agents, because they're so aware of their feelings and emotions, and they're able to express it in ways that we weren't back in the day.
Right. Right.
They don't have no fear.
They don't. It's a total generation, but that's great that you were able to get, you know, that affirmation that you were going in the right direction with your message. So I know when you transitioned to Tennessee, talk about coming from Queens and going to Knoxville, Tennessee, and that experience. Was it difficult to make that transition? Did you have to adjust?
Very, very difficult. It was like culture shock to me. Again, I'm thinking they got my major. They got Pat Summitt, Layball basketball. Oh, this is where I want to be. The orange color is popping on the skin tone. Like, this is it. I didn't think about, like, Tennessee at that time was 98% Caucasian, 2% other, and the 2% were like athletes and the engineers from Memphis, as they say. So I had to deal with that. I guess I talk fast. I'm from New York City, right? And they talk very slow. There's no diversity. It was like the sea of white, maybe like some black people. So I'm like coming from New York, yo, we're the Asian people, we're the Hispanic people. Right. And I'll never forget our study academic advice. She's like, oh, you go to the building over there. And I was like so confused. So all the Hispanic and Asian people, it was like the international student. So it was just like culture shock, and I was just having that tough time adjusting, you know. I was like, man, I should have just probably went to Connecticut, been close to the crib. I'm transferring. I don't want to be here. And Coach Summitt, she was like, oh, just hang in there. And she already talked to my grandmother. So when I'm complaining to my grandmother, she's like, nope, no, you're not transferring. It's a little different these days. The kids is into that portal.
Yeah.
You back then you went to a school unless it was like you stayed, right? So my grandma's like, and you're not gonna take 5 years, 4 years, you better get that degree. So I'm like,
they always say that.
I had to make it work, but Coach Summitt, she was just like, I'm gonna tell you, you know, family's not just blood, it's the people that show up and show out for you. And don't worry, Holdsclaw, you're gonna have a sisterhood. And you know what, she didn't lie. Once I met my teammates, Kelly Jolly, who's the coach, Kelly Jai Harper, who's the coach now at Tennessee, we came in together, and you couldn't get two people together with different experiences. She's from like Sparta, Tennessee, the country, riding horses and stuff like that. I'm the city kid, and I'm just looking at her like whatever, but we connected. She got to come to New York City. I got to go to Sparta, ride horses, you know, do all this stuff. And I guess sometimes like young people, it's fearing the unknown, right? You get a little afraid, and I'm glad that like I got over it. I bought into it, right? You got to buy into the system sometimes, the way things are. And a whole nother side of me opened up. I'm coming from New York. I'm like, why do people want to walk for fun? AKA hiking, right?
Right.
Like, I'm like, what? But it's the Tennessee. It's the mountains, right? It's beautiful, like nature. Like I didn't know that part of life. That's one of the things that they blessed me with, you know? And so I don't know. It prepared me for my journey. I had no idea I would like play, you know, multiple years like overseas, Russia, you know, Korea, Cyprus, you know, like all over, like Poland, like Spain. But again, that taught me there, like to embrace the unknown. So I would go to these places. I want to go to the homes of my teammates, and they're always, Chamique, you're not like the other Americans. Oh my God. Yeah, because like, I want to know how y'all live, you know?
Right.
It's okay. Show me or whatever. I appreciate other cultures. I'm respectful. And I just learned so much. It made me like a citizen of the world, I would say.
No, that's awesome. When you got to Tennessee, I mean, you get there, y'all winning national championships your freshman year, but how intense were those practices? How demanding was Coach Summit?
Very, very, very demanding. So demanding. I mean, I got like clipboards thrown at me. Like, one time, man, I swear she flung that clipboard and like clipped me. Man, she was so tough on me. It's so tough on us. And people think, sometimes you're like the star of the team, one of the stars that the coach gives you. Man, it was like no break. I knew I was good, right? But Coach Summit got every ounce of ability like out of me. She knew not just like how to push, but she was able to like the physical out of you. Like she was able, but the mental, like she knew how to, she would break you down, but also build you back up. You know what I'm saying?
That's
She was just, and her staff, they just knew how to like support each other, because man, she ran us. She ran us. I remember one time, like, this is typical coach. She looked at one of my teammates and she said, sometimes I wonder why I even gave you a scholarship. I'm like, yo, this lady cold blood. But she knew every play is different. You got to motivate some people differently, We heard stories about, oh, she run you to death. She make you throw up. A kid like me from New York, I'm like, you're not running me to death. Like I'm not afraid of that. You know what I'm saying? Like she said, like a part of her success was learning. You have to learn the individuals and to adapt. Threatening me with like running is not going to motivate me. You know what I'm saying? So she knew how to, I guess, like push the buttons on each one of us individually, And that was, I think, why we were so successful. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever watched Cinderella season? I always tell people, just go watch it. During my sophomore year, freshman year, we won a championship. Sophomore year, we lost like 10 games. All the former players and stuff were like, kick them out the locker room. They don't deserve that wear the Tennessee jersey and uniform. Writing long letters because we were struggling.
Yeah.
But we came back and we won the championship. But HBO was actually recording us that year. So it made for a great documentary because it's like the Cinderella season. Everybody counted us out. We came back and we won. But you see a young me just crying, going through like emotions. You just see us like really having to bond like as sisters. It wasn't so much about Coach Summit. Like we started any great team, no matter what you do, sports or business, a great team learns how to police each other and to operate on their own. We had Coach Summit here, but the thing that made us great were that we started to take ownership of what we had as a collective, right? So we had a respect. It didn't matter if I was like considered the best player. The last person on the bench could tell me about myself, and I was receptive because they're watching the game, right? And they're like, Holdsclaw, you're not playing any defense. It wasn't like I'm not in my feelings. I'm like, oh, okay, I got you, sis. Like I got you. Like we had to step it up, and that's the type of accountability that we had for each other, and we won a championship.
No, that was crazy. Then your junior season, y'all go 39-0, and that's like insane. That was an NCAA record. I'm assuming that record may still stand, but 39-0 in a national championship, that's crazy.
Let me tell you. And now, like, sometimes when you're going through things, it's like the speed of it, like I look back, I was like, man, my career is like a blur. I have like so many friends that coach that remember my recruiting process in high school. They're like, oh my God, do you remember? I'm like, I don't remember that. But one thing I remember is, you add that spice, that black girl magic. It was the adding the Chamique, the Tamika, the Samika, the three Meeks. Like, I didn't realize it until like afterwards, like, yo, this is significant. This is like
it was
Black history right here. Like they couldn't say our names. So they were just like the three Meeks. But man, the type of athleticism that we introduced to the game, the sisterhood, the things we were able to accomplish, and it was all of us working together. It's like no jealousy, no bickering. Like we all knew our roles, and we went out there and did it. It was such beautiful art. It's funny because during that one of our undefeated season, guess what? I had a camcorder, right? I was recording like the NCAA championship. I just got those tapes like last week.
Really?
And I'm looking at like, yo, the mindset of us in our rooms. It was like our intimate. I'm interviewing everybody walking around the camcorder. And it is amazing. Like I'm sitting here like, wow, we were so young. Like we were so competitive. We just were having like fun. Like it was just like not a fear in the world, but we were so confident.
Yeah.
Because we busted our butts and worked. Like we always said, practice is going to be so hard, right? Like we're going to work. Like, come on, Coach Summit will put us opposite each other in practice.
So that's, you going against the best of the best.
Right. Like, you know, like, I'm like, all right. She's like, Holdsclaw, guard, catch. Catch, guard. All right, Samika is me. You picking up Samika. I'm like, yo, I don't even play the same position. No, if you could guard her, you guard anybody.
Right.
And that's the way it was. So the games were like easy. And it was like, I'll never forget, Carolina went up, like they was about to beat us. We weren't going to the Final Four. They had us up by 20 points at halftime. Samika Randall is in my face. What, man, sis, you need to play. You ain't playing. You want this. And it would be easy to be a star player. Like, get her out my face. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yo, she fired me up. And I saw this tape. I have the tape. So I'm looking. And she's like, see what we can do. Like, this is what we're talking about. This is what we talking. And I'm like, yo, we won that game. We were supposed to. But that's the sisterhood, you know, like you can tell me like, pick it up. It was an awesome time.
That sounds incredible. I guess like after, you know, you have your stellar career at Tennessee and you get drafted number 1 in the WNBA. I mean, they donned you. You were going to be the Jordan of the WNBA. You wore 20 in college. How was that pressure going into the league, or, you know, what was your mindset?
It was like, you know, everybody that was good, they compared to Jordan.
Right. I mean, that's what we saw as kids. You know, he was so dominant and you were dominant. I mean, you won 7 championships in a row if you look at it from high school to your first 3 years in college.
It was, I won't say it was like any like added pressure. I was just like, man, when you're operating in that realm of greatness, it's like, hey, what's next, you know?
Right.
So it was an exciting time. It was like, man, to see. I wrote letters to myself as a kid. Like I wanted to be the first woman to play in the NBA, all this type of stuff. And then the WNBA came along. So to look back at the letters that I wrote to myself, and I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be on TV and have my own shoe. Like I wrote this stuff as a high school kid, right? My grandmother on draft day was in New York and handed me the letter, and I just cried. Like if you saw a video, you see me come up the stage and after getting drafted number 1, and she gave me the letter, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, oh my God. Then I look at her, I'm like, you're nosy because you was reading my letters and stuff. Like, but all of it became a reality, you know. Like I go to DC, number 1 pick. Man, I had Nike flying me from Tennessee campus, you know, out to Oregon to try to sign me. Reebok, heads of companies, you know, are trying to sign me. To witness that. I was on a Nike campus back then, and I get there and I'm just so excited. You know, like you get the shop, Nike. And I look around like, yo, everybody's wearing a welcome Chamique Holdsclaw shirt. Like, what? Like this, it was like amazing, you know? And I'm like, all right, I got to pick what shoe I'm going to wear. Nickelodeon wants to sign me, give me my own show. Like, you guys want to give me my own show? Like it was just so many like highs, you know, like during the career in Tennessee, my university gave my own street, you know.
Oh, wow.
So if you go to Knoxville, you pull up to Thompson Bowl Arena, you see Chamique Holdsclaw drive.
Oh, wow. That's right dope.
There. Yeah. So it was a lot of amazing highs, a lot of like firsts and things. And I just embraced it, but it was a big transition for me because when you talk about college, right? High school, you know, having that type of background, college, the same thing. The coaches control the programs, right? Pros is a lot different, you know. You have coaches dealing with like an age gap of 21. You say, I had a teammate when I first came in, 38 years old, you know.
Grown.
Right. I think I played one time where a player was older than my coach or something. It was like weird, but it like Phil Jackson. I read a lot of his books, and it's learning how to manage personalities per se, right? Because that crack the whip mentality that coaches have in college, because that's their program, right? It's not the same that you have in college. You know, I had to adjust to like a teammate, like a Dennis Rodman type personality, right? That can party all the time and come to practice smelling like beer or whatever, but they get the job done, you know? So it was a different experience for me. Whatever, being a number one pick, going to like the worst team, you know, trying to figure that out. And my first rodeo at the Mystics, I think I played for like it was like a new coach every year. It was like no stability. That was like really, really tough. And then, you know, just me dealing with my like mental health stuff, like it really started to like play a major role in my life. It was always there, but I think I hit a breaking point when my grandmother passed. You know, that was like when everything sort of like fell apart for me, and it was getting harder and harder to like put the pieces back together. And I thought, okay, I'm a great athlete, right? I'm in control of my body. It's this ego you get when you're great at something. And it's not like a bad people like ego. No, it's like, if I want to jump higher, you know, like you be in the gym trying to work on jumping higher, trying to do something. You have that control. Like you see the equipment and you're like, okay, if I do this, I'm gonna get stronger. I'm gonna lift these weights. So my mind, I'm like, man, like I got this. I'm talking about world class. I'm gonna be okay. But I did not have the skill set really to like to work on the mental. I didn't know how to cope and deal. So it made me like really try to like hide it. I felt like it was starting to surface, and I was working double time to mask the things that I was going through. And eventually I became like a stuffer. I'm stuffing these feelings and emotions and into a bag, imagine, and ultimately it's going to explode. And that's what happened. I was diagnosed early as a kid, you know, with dealing with like severe anxiety, you know, dealing with early childhood trauma and all that stuff, adjusting to, you know, my parents' situation and stuff. So my grandmother, she was aware and had me in therapy. But when things are going good, you know, things are going great, we tend to like say, all right, push it to the side. And I knew I was becoming good at basketball, and I thought that was going to like be my outlet, you know? So even when I would like go to therapy, oh, I'm better now, you know, I learned to like manipulate the system. And unfortunately for me, that wasn't a good thing. You know, I just wish that I would have just been more in tune to get the help and utilize the resources that were around me. Because in college, you know, Coach Summit, she was great. You know, I talked to her about the struggles I was having and couldn't really focus. You know, wasn't really sleeping, anxious all the time. And she was able to lead me to get therapy, right? But again, I'm like, all right, I'm better now. As soon as that, I got uncomfortable in the process, right? I'm better now. I'm going to drop this 20 and 10. But for me, it's something that was not sustainable. You know, I was dealing with real life stuff, you know, losing my grandmother and transitions, you know, coming into this womanhood. And I really was masking it. I was successful on the court, but my mental health was just very fragile. And I just felt like I had to put the mask on because I'm the star. I can't show weakness, you know. It's like you think like, oh man, I'm good. I got this, but I didn't have it. And so I'm just really proud of the shift of athletes now, just like speaking up and putting themselves first. Because if you think about it, like think about how regimented we were as college athletes, right? And then you imagine like taking your face and throwing it out there, like being, like you said, oh, consider female Michael Jordan, all the people coming at me, all these things. I just wish I was like more aware and better equipped to deal with it at the time.
What made you to finally decide that you needed to, you know, address your mental health and, you know, really focus on that and get healthy?
Yeah, it was scary because I was really struggling with like suicidal ideation. And I, you know, tried to take my life one time, and it was just like, it was just me. Like, if I don't get this help, I'm not going to be here. You know, I'm like, I invest so much and it was like being a great student athlete, right? Academics and basketball. And then it became like, oh, I could do this for a living. Like, this can change my life. Okay. Put so much work into like my craft skills, working on my skills as an athlete. I had to take that same like protocol in a sense and apply that to my life. I got to do the work. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm not going to be here. I want to be healthy. I want to be a healthy daughter. I want the color back in my life, because crazy. I look at those videos of like I just found, and I was just so carefree. So I was always silly. You know, I never had a problem making friends. Everybody wanted to hang around me, but because I'm like bubbly, silly, joke around. But that, like, it was like a trap door open where I was that person, but then I would go home and I would just want to like sit in the dark. I was so down and depressed. It was just like this shift where I wasn't that old Chamique. I was telling my wife, I was like, yo, is this crazy? Because what happened? Like, it's like this door open and I just went down another path. But it was great. Like, I just decided I wanted me back. I fought for me, and I just invested in therapy, learning how to cope. You know, for everybody is different. Some people don't need therapy, right? Some people can go just meditate. You know, some people find it therapeutic to exercise. Like, everybody's different. I had to find out what worked for me. You know, and what worked for me was really just talking it out with my therapist, connecting. In my case, having bipolar disorder, I had to like buy in and understand, yo, I have to take this medication.
Yeah.
Because I fought against it for so long. I'm like, I'm not taking these pills. I'm good. Let me go exercise. Let me go run. And then I would have like that crash, you know? And then my doctor's like, I think you need a mood stabilizer and da-da-da-da. And I finally bought into it. And I was like, yo, the color's coming back.
Wow.
I feel good about myself. And oh my God, I feel balanced or whatever. And she's like, yeah, they don't tell you. They just like basically give you the prescription. And then she's monitoring me, you know?
Right.
And then she's like, yeah, I've seen a big change. Like, it's working. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah. So, with your journey, with mental health and now being an ambassador, through your foundation and bringing awareness to mental health, explain why you think it's so important, especially with athletes. And then again, like, why is it such a negative connotation on mental health?
Man, negative stigma's real. You know what I'm saying? For so long, that's been a sign of weakness. You know, it's been people think, oh, you have kinks in your armor, you're crazy. You know, growing up in New York, you would see people on the corner, and this is me, young me, looking, he's talking to, oh, that man's, oh, he's crazy, he's a drunk or whatever. You know. But like with my dad was drinking he's schizophrenic. He has schizophrenic disorder. He is drinking to mask the thoughts and the things that are in his head, you know? So I think a lot of times it's like really just taking a step back and seeing like why people are having these actions. A lot of people are just really, really struggling with all types of, I won't say all types, but yeah, it's such a spectrum when you think about like mental health, you know, it's just like a spectrum. People have different diagnoses, people are struggling, but so many people just don't get the help, you know? Like so many people are just in denial. It's just something, especially like I could speak as a Black woman, man. We all got that Uncle Lenny in our family, right? That we're just like, oh, he crazy. He's a drunk. We don't ever talk about like this man has like serious issues.
Right.
You know
what the underlying issues are. Yeah.
Right. Let's like really talk about it. So if that's what I was growing up around, you know, it's just like what happens in your household stays in your household. Don't you talk about this business out here in the street? And I'm like, yo, like this is I get what you're saying. Like I respect my grandmother, but now looking back, it's like, no, this was not right. We gotta have these discussions, right? Like to cause healing. But back to what you're saying, because I'm going on another tangent. Sorry about that.
No, that's good stuff.
When we think about like mental health, it's just like people don't want to be judged. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the real. Like get to meet so many different people working in this field now, and that's the big thing. Like people just we go inwardly when we think people are judging us, or we consider like that's a weakness, such a weakness, you know. And it's not. Now the conversation is changing. It's a sign of strength, you know. People out here, they want to be better for themselves, for their kids, for their families. And you talk about athletes, man, we have to work so hard in the regimen, you know what I'm saying? We're doing things over and over and over to try to be great. We got coaches who are riding us. Like everybody cracks sometimes. Like we trying to search for this perfect balance, right? And especially for us, like went to these programs with having resources, like if you're getting pushed and you have to operate with this greatness, right? Like no matter what school or level you play in, Division II, like Division, you're still in a system where you want to do well, right?
Right.
If they have a therapist there, somebody to help guide you, a performance, we call it performance enhancement or whatever, take advantage of it, you know? I tell kids all the time, like y'all sitting here, Power 5 schools, all these resources, because when you go into the real world, therapists cost a lot of money. A good one, I'm gonna say that. And not everybody's gonna have like the resources and like insurance and things like that. So right now, these kids are aware. They're like, yo, let me get this. Let me take advantage of this right now in order to help me become great at what I do.
So when you decided that it was time to hang up your sneaks and decided to retire from the WNBA, what factored into that decision, and you just thought it was just that time? It's so hard for especially professional athletes, or athletes in general, just decide to move on in another direction.
Right. You know, for me, I never like officially retired. I tore my Achilles, right?
Yep.
And I tore my Achilles 2010, a game against Minnesota. Like, I just remember stepping up, looking at Simone Augustus, and I'm yelling at Nikki Anasicki, Tennessee girl. She was on the team. She kicked me. She kicked me. And I'm there. My Achilles popped. They showed me the video in the locker room. Nobody was near me.
Nobody was near you.
Yeah. And so I was rehabbing, and a lot of people don't know this because even Coach Summit, like, they was like, you should be back on the court. Yo, I was at Life University in Atlanta. They have like a track there. And I used to just go up there and like walk and run. And a part of my therapy now, I'm probably like 8 months out, maybe 9 months out, was to do like some light jogging, jog walks, 2 minutes, walk a minute, whatever. Yo, I'm there in the midday and I'm doing that, and all of a sudden I just fall down. I re-tore my Achilles. I was on the opposite side. I lie to you not. I had to flog. Nobody's on the track this day randomly in this university. I've like pushed myself all the way back to my car, right? And then I had to like call my friend to come get me because it's my driving foot. I couldn't drive. I'm like there, yo. It was crazy. So I was just really, I really, that's when like my depression just like hit, because it's like toward again, I'm away from like sport. Like that's the one thing that kind of keeps me out of my head. You know, I have that task to do every day, and then I just really went to like a dark place. You know what I'm saying? And I really was struggling. I had like outside of the suicidal ideation, I had like episodes, you know, like psychotic break and stuff like that. It was just really a tough time. And once I started like digging out of that or whatever, just having a plan to, like, I would say, re-enter life, you know, like people hear me talk and they're like, man, it was that bad. Like, it was really, really bad. But I'm not like afraid to like talk about it anymore, you know, because it's healing in that. I claim that, and I've done the work. I do the work every day to like move forward in life. And now, you know, I'm married, I have two kids, and I look at my children and I'm just like, wow, man, to be able to like change the generational stuff. Is we talk about fear. My 2-year-old, like, the teachers are like, they had to move him up a little preschool. He had to move up because he's 2. They had to move him up to pre-K 3 because they're like, did you guys send him to a special school over the summer? No, we talked to him. He's a COVID baby. He was with us. So he's just he's like, Mimi, he calls me Mimi. He's like, Mimi, today Cairo was sad. Why are you sad? Because Mimi, you gave me special treat, and my friend took my treat.
Oh wow!
So I'm like, he has emotional kids. You start to see the emotional intelligence kick in, and I'm just like, wow, man, I get to give him certain skills I didn't have, right? I get to be a blessing to him and my daughter, and so it's just like, man, I went through my journey, and I've been able to inspire others and help them with this. But now I've been doing this for over 10 years. So I've gotten to see some of the student athletes I work with. I've gotten to see them in college, younger. Now to go to the pros, right? Or not even go to the pros, now to have their own families, you know what I'm saying? And to see how they're created shifts in their life and how they're doing the work. It really makes me feel like really, 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 really good, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I told you were going to get to the other side of this. And they're like, Miss Holdsclaw. I'm like, Miss Holdsclaw?
No, that's crazy when you get that. Don't do that.
I'm like, nah, it's me. They're, to say, hey, you know what? Your testimony when you came and spoke at my school, and just how open you were and allowing me to like reach out to you, and you changed my life, man. That right there, I hit a lot of game-winning shots, you know what I'm saying? And I followed my grandmother, her dream was for me to get my degree in Tennessee. 4 years, I did that. But to really affect change,
right.
and like to do something that you're so passionate about and find it like rewarding to help others, it's like almost like a ministry. Like everybody's like, Holdsclaw, why are you not coaching? And then it was this gentleman, he's a big disability advocate, right? And he was at an event with me, and he goes, you are a coach. Yeah. And I was like, he's like, you gotta look at it like that, he's like, it's bigger than just mental health. Like he looked me in the eye, he's in the wheelchair, and he said, you're a disability advocate. He goes, when I listen to you, you inspire people. He goes, you have people that can't get out of bed like every day, and you're such a like inspiration. So it's bigger than you. He goes, you're just like a happy-go-lucky person. And I know I see the struggle. Like he was just reading me. He's like, I know it's been a struggle, but God is using you. And I'm just like, man, like that hit me, like sometimes it's hard. It's hard like to share not so good things about yourself. Right.
And to be public about it. Right.
Yeah. Like I relive it every time. But it's just like part of you, like, and I always have to decompress after I speak. And I'm just like, man, like my grandmother would be like so proud of me because I've gone through this, and she's like such, involved in the church, that was like a big thing. And she was like, always remember, you gotta pray. And I would say, I pray so much for this day to have a clear mindset, like I have that now, me and my wife, we talk all the time. She's like, communicate about our feelings. And she's like, she can see me in a way I can't see myself, and she's just like, I'm just like so proud of you. She goes, I know sometimes your anxiety gets the best of you, but she goes, you're just an amazing like mother, and just how much you've grown. I'm just like so proud of you. So when she says that just makes me smile, because it shows that like I'm arrived. All of this has been, all of the hard work that I've done has been for a reason,
No, that's good. That's fantastic. Me. So I got a couple more questions though. I'm gonna go back to Tennessee. Now you were in school with Peyton Manning, right? Y'all were in school around the same time. Who was the bigger athlete on campus?
No, he's number 16, man. I didn't know, like coming from New York. I'm like, why don't these people want to go sit in this thing and watch the football? New York's not a football place.
Right.
And I was like, and everybody's wearing the 16. That's Peyton Manning.
Right.
Peyton is such an amazing guy, big guy, but one of the nicest guys that I met. I just remember his mom and dad always come on campus. Such great people. It was always like cool, Peyton. So I would say we shared the throne. He was always nice, congratulating us and making sure. It's crazy. Those tapes, I was going through my stuff, and I have like a note from Peyton.
Oh, that's
It's like
awesome.
whatever. And I was telling my friend, I was like, "Oh," and he left his phone number. He was like, "Hey, give me a call whenever." And I was like, "Man, I was going to show it." And I was like, "It would be Peyton had the same phone number." I can't. I was like, "I can't put this up." I mean, people be like, "Oh my God!" You know, some people keep the same phone number forever.
Habit. I've had the same number, I think, since college. I have cell number. And one more thing, like with the NIL going on right now, name, image, and likeness.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
Now think about your playing days and the opportunities you would have had if this was around when you played. You know, speak a little bit about that.
It's crazy, but you know, you always want to see things grow and get bigger, and I love it, especially for as ladies. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna say, speak of Dawn Staley's program, like the opportunities those ladies are getting, they're winning, they're doing well. Like I'm for it. You know what I'm saying? Everything is get what's there for you. You know what I'm saying? Take advantage of it. Everybody has their day. You know what I'm saying? I have my time or whatever. And I'm like, yo, this is exciting. Like all the young athletes in my family, I'm like, make sure you guys have your little websites and the metaverse. Make sure y'all get your name and stuff together now. Get it? You know what I'm saying? I have some, family friends, kids about to go, like, stellar athletes about to go like to these Power 5 schools. I'm like, yo, make sure you got your Instagram and stuff popping, because these kids, it's what we wanted for so long, right? To be in control. All those 23s walking around Tennessee, like, they were making money. Yes, you get an education, but now with social media, there's so many opportunities. Allow these kids to own what's theirs. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They out here. I remember, like, what's your Georgia boy? Kamara, right?
Yeah.
I think I was like, when he was at Tennessee or whatever, like he had, like, I think created, if I'm not mistaken, like a t-shirt business or something.
Wow. He's a creative guy though. He's different, but it's worked well for him.
Yeah, but I just remember, like, some people are complaining about something. I'm like, this is his joy. Like, this is his vision. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you get mad? But it's again, we know NCAA, they've been winning for a long time, off the backs of us athletes. And, hey, it's our time. You work for your last name, right? Like, that's what it is. Like, I'm like, man, my kids, like, I didn't get it. You like, yo, you out here through these doors, Holdsclaw. We do our little huddle up, me and my son. I'm like, team Holdsclaw on 3. 1, 2, 3, Holdsclaw. Yeah, you out here. That's your last name, right? Yep. That's your last name. You go out here and you create greatness. And so I love it. This NIL, it's a car show. That's what I call it, though, sis. It's good. I'm traveling around the big schools. It's the car show. I was like, damn, man, it might have been nice to be in college pushing the range.
It is. I'm seeing these kids when I'm calling games, and I'm just like, y'all in the flyest clothes. I mean, driving the nicest cars, and the exposure. And when I follow some of them on social media, just seeing the deals they have, I'm like, these kids are out here making money, especially on the women's side, which I think is very important.
It's so important, and I love it. So again, it's like carpe diem, seize it, take advantage of it, because best to believe they're trying to maneuver to take it away. They're trying. They are. They behind, like, this is out of control, because I think it's a kid coming to Tennessee. I think I saw possibly, or maybe saw, they consider him already to be $1 million a year. Wow. He's gonna NIL, like, and they think he's a quarterback. Man, I was watching video. This kid was whipping. So you come in, like, he's gonna be making more than some of the coaches, not the head coach, of course, but like $1 million a year.
Like, speaking of Peyton Manning, like, can you imagine what his nephew's about to make when he goes to Texas?
Right, like,
that's gonna be insane. Yeah,
he's good too, man. This is an exciting time, and just take advantage of it. But I love how some of these programs are also teaching these kids financial literacy, right? So again, you can make all this in college now. If you don't go pro, the expectation is if they're making it, they're gonna go pro. But like you see the young lady at UConn tear her ACL again,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's like, oh my God. And I'm sure she's going to bounce back, but you just don't know the injuries and stuff. But now she's been able to secure the bag, you know, and hopefully, you know, with her parents and stuff that, you know, she knows financially how to navigate, you know?
Yeah, that's important. So I'm going to get to the talk that talk questions, the triple TQ. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions and you just give me what's off the top of your head. What advice would you give to young athletes dealing with the pressures of adolescence and depression?
Really search for like balance. You know what I'm saying? It's so much, and be okay sometimes with just being you. You know, I think a lot of time it's the external that a lot of young people are dealing with, external things. You know, peer pressure, wanting to fit in or whatever. But just be okay being you, authentically yourself. You know what I'm saying? And also, you know, you're gonna go through stresses. You know, you're gonna go. Life is up and down. So when you're young, try to remove this thought. Right? Oh my God, nobody understands. That's what so many young people. Nobody understands what I'm going through. We all been there. You know what I'm saying? We all gone through this. Like we're like nobody understands. And the thing about it is, if you talk to your peers and your parents, your guardians, they've been there.
Right.
You're gonna get through it. You know what I'm saying? This don't internalize it and think you have to always deal with it on your own.
That's good advice. Explain the impact that basketball has had on your life.
Oh my God! Come on now, man. The impact, it's introduced me to culture, it's introduced me to the world, it's educated me in a sense. Like I got to go to like one of my dream schools and have it paid for.
Right.
Do you know how much college is? My family, I wouldn't have been able to afford to go to a school like Tennessee or whatever. I would have went to college, but not that. So it's given me a great education, the sisterhood, the friendships. Oh my God, it's given me the opportunity to provide and take care of my family, to expose them to things that they haven't been exposed to. Like when I was playing abroad, I would always like have my cousins or, you know, my mom come. So they got to experience like other cultures and open their eyes. I was always big on make sure the young ones see things, you know. I would always have my cousins, they'll tell you, I used to be like, yo, get on the bus. Like the parent, come down to DC, get on the plane, come to LA, like to experience that and making sure that I expose them to different things and to create a shift. So sports has just been amazing. I can't wait until like my son's able to, he's 3 next year, he's starting out with soccer. Because it's just learning how to problem solve, you know. Right. You and a teammate may not like each other, right? Off the court, off the field, but you learn how to work it out to be successful when you're operating together. You know, that's the beauty of it. You learn to like, hey, we got to figure this out, problem solve. But now once we figured out this, I ain't really got to talk to you. but we understand how to work together.
Right.
That's the key. Like athletics teaches you that, man, and handling stress and pressure. You know, like look at my life, like the stuff that I was dealing with. I was like, I'm like playing basketball, like the easy part, but I knew it was times where I had to dig deep. Like you was like, man, I'm like, oh God, we got to come back. We got to work harder in practice. That work ethic, right? It's inside of me. So whatever I approach in life, you're drawing from those principles, you know?
Right.
Like, you know, you're like, tough times don't last. Coach used to always tell me that, but tough people do. I got this. Think about how many times, like in your career, that you're using the same talk that you did to yourself as an athlete, right? It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. I'm like, I got this. You know what? I'm gonna have this setback, but I'm gonna be all right. But we learn to have those setbacks as athletes and to push forward. Like it's like, all right, cool. I didn't get it this time. Let me move forward, right? I got it next time.
Right. Minor setbacks for a major comeback. I always love that one. And the last question, what is the legacy that you want to leave for future generations?
Oh my God, legacy, man. Put some respect on it, right? Let's see.
That name.
My legacy, man, that's it. I just really, I kindness, forgiveness, love, like those are all the things that I want to leave. So my legacy right now, who I am, like you say, is going to be reflected in my children,
Mm-hmm.
And so I love it. Like, I love that at this young age, like my son, man, I talk about him a lot because he's a little older than my daughter. She's getting it. But I see me so much. And again, my wife was like, oh my God, this is like, I biologically have no, I didn't birth this kid, but
Mm-hmm.
he's so me because he's around me a lot and we spend a lot of time, and he's a little mini me. and he's so sweet. And I'm like, oh my God, my wife is like, yeah. So when you want to be a butthole, just think about your legacy, the legacy I gave you. And it's true. Just kindness, love, perseverance, like we all have, like you said, setbacks. I had like major setbacks, but I continue to thrive, to do the work. And I just want people to understand that, like you can have these setbacks, but a setback is always a setup for something greater. And that's where, like, when you think Chamique Holdsclaw, I used to struggle with that because I'm like, oh my God, what is my legacy gonna be? Because it's like I kind of went off the script a little bit, but nah, God makes no mistakes because I see it right in front of me. It's a setback for the setup, and I've been able to do something and take control of it when it was unpopular. You know what I'm saying? Because I operated so long in the popular,
Right.
And I had that shift, but in that shift is where I found me and been able to do something that was in my heart and a purpose. So it's like no fear, man. I always tell these young people, I'm like, man, this is really minor. You're gonna get over this. I got you, though. I'm here.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Meek, I appreciate you joining the podcast. This was an excellent conversation. And I know my listeners and viewers are gonna love listening to you and hearing your story because you just never know how it may resonate. And like you said, you talk to people and they'll say, I saw what you were going through. I was going through something similar and just didn't know how to get out of it or how to speak to somebody about it. But you are opening the doors and paving the way for future generations to understand that there's nothing wrong with admitting that you have something that you need to either work on or get through, and speaking on it and speaking out about it can always help. So thanks again. This was awesome. I love it.
Thanks for having me, sis. This has been real awesome.
Okay. Well, thanks again. And, good luck with the future. I know I'm going to stay in touch with you to hear and see what's going on with your foundation, what you're doing. And we'll continue to support you on my platform because I just think you're just awesome. And you were such an inspiration to me as a high school kid growing up. I was like, yo, she's doing that. She's paving the way and knocking down doors. So it's going to be an opportunity for me too one day. So thank you.
Oh, yes. Anytime. Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I'm going to do like I do every episode, and I'm going to give my Black business shout out. And the Black business shout out for this episode goes out to Ross Sinclair. She is the creator of our own line of handcrafted goods, of refined and luxurious fragrances or home fragrances that you can use in your home, like oils, incense, candles, all of those goods she has on her website. And those are the types of products she is putting into people's homes. I recently purchased one of her oils on her oil line. I think it's a lavender vanilla scent. It's incredible. Light one of my small candles and then just let the oil just flow. The scent flows throughout your entire home. It is an incredible smell and is giving my home a new sense of just comfort or just feeling comfortable and just chilling in the home for friends and guests to just come and enjoy as well. But she strictly makes her home products to demonstrate the type of look good, feel good mentality with her products. And that's exactly what she's doing. She believes that choosing happiness every day is the key to a life well lived. So that's what we're going to push this episode. And with the Black business shout out, it goes out to Ross Sinclair and what she's continuing to do as an entrepreneur and a Black female in the business of producing and selling home products. Her hope is that Lux Goods times Ross Sinclair brings joy into your home and helps you relax, flourish, and restore. So let's keep that in mind. Go support this Black entrepreneur, Black female entrepreneur, because she's doing good things and bringing great products around this country, and you can support her online. Just hit up her Instagram or hit her website up. And that's the Black business shout out for the week. But again, this was another great episode. I had the pleasure and honor of having Chamique Holdsclaw to join me for this episode for an incredible interview. She really spoke and shed some light on the effects of mental health and how it can affect female or just athletes in general, and what the struggle she had to go through to overcome to get to the place where she is today, to being an ambassador and a spokesperson for mental health, and just speaking and putting some guidance and kindness and love out there to the atmosphere to so many people who deal with mental health, and have to have the awareness that it's okay to address it. It's nothing wrong to say, I'm dealing with this and let me speak about it. So I applaud Chamique Holdsclaw and what she's done as a professional athlete, but now in her second job in life, which is just bringing attention and awareness to mental health and the need to take care of yourself. But another great episode. I appreciate all my listeners and viewers for tuning in to another one. Glad to be back for this one, episode 30. Please check us out. We're going to continue, or I'm going to continue to put out content. It'll probably be on a monthly basis, but we're going to continue to expose, bring interviews, bring good content, and hopefully you guys enjoy and continue to listen and watch. And see you next time.